You get fully mandraked out.
Yeah,
and
before I become transformed. Yeah.
You are formed of the. You will be formed of the
I'll
dead.
Be formed of the dead.
So Bruce, we're so excited. Today we've announced for the first time. Obviously, you've been working on the Mandrake project for several years now.
Yeah.
But the final collection, the first collection,
Yeah.
first 4 issues and the secret prologue are now all together in one edition for fans. Tell us about the journey to this very day.
Well, I can't believe we've gotten here, to be honest with you, because when we first started out doing it, it was, am I really doing this? You know, I couldn't believe I was doing it. But it's great because now you can get the book. And the book, frankly, is. I look at the comic now, the individual comics, as being, these are kind of bespoke collector's items. You know, because let's face it, people don't go and buy comics like they used to back in the day. So we have to make those comics special. But of course, it's building blocks towards Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3, and then finally the mega one. I've got some ideas for special right at the end, but we're a couple of years away from that. But it's brilliant. The story continues, and we are. I'm 3 episodes into book 2 now, and I'm just holding off writing the last episode until I get my head around the first 3. And yeah, but I'm really getting ahead of the game on this, which gives us longer to prepare with the artwork and everything else like that. But it's so exciting, and I hope people dig it. I mean, I love getting feedback, so please give me some feedback. You know.
Yes, and guys, obviously in the chat, we're going to be after this interview, we're going to be taking questions from you fans. So as you think of questions about the Mandrake project, the album, the comic, and everything related to it, send them our way. Now, let's go back to 1960s, Little Bruce. What were some of the first comics that you remember seeing in your youth that might have turned you on to the medium?
What did we have round about then? Fantastic Four, Iron Man, lots of Doctor Strange. We had our own kind of homegrown comics as well. Commando Comics was like a war comics, because it wasn't that far away from the end of the last the Second World War. So 45, 55, like less than 20 years from the end of that war. You know? Right. So there were plenty of. I used to read like just black and white, cheap little paperback things. The American ones were a bit more exotic, and they had peculiar adverts in them that nobody could understand in England, because it was like, who is Norman Rockwell and why does he want you to paint? You know, I mean, not a clue. And what's the zip code? You know, I kept looking at my pants going, what's the zip code for that? You know what I mean? So, I mean, yeah, stuff. But, yeah, Superman. I used to get a lot of Superman, as I recall. And I was like, I kind of should be impressed by Superman. But I'm not, because he's like indestructible. Where's the story? You know, I mean,
where's the challenge?
Yeah, but Iron Man, I liked him. Fantastic Four, Human Torch, that was me. I wanted to be the Human Torch, you know, because he could fly, set fire to shit, and he kind of like was kind of attractive to girls, you know. And I couldn't fly, I couldn't set fire to anything, and girls, no, not yet.
Well, I think you have become the Human Torch. So I think you got there eventually.
I've been aspiring to it my whole life, and finally Iron Maiden gave me the opportunity to have my own personal two-fisted flamethrower. I'm like, yes, flame on. You know.
See, that's it. Maybe people might not have known that was the inspiration.
Yeah, well, it wasn't actually.
We'll give some comic credit.
Yeah.
You mentioned Doctor Strange, in particular. Now, that really ties back to the Mandrake project in particular. You know, there was a particular great comic in the 60s. It was actually, we looked it up, in Strange Tales 137, I believe, which was If Eternity
Should Fail. Yeah, absolutely. And it was slightly disappointing to find out there was a big bloke with an empty stomach called Eternity. I'm like, oh no, I expected more, you know. But as a philosophical concept, I love the title. Wow, what a great concept. Eternity should fail. What does that mean, you know? I'd already been working with the idea of comics with the Maiden singles before that, for Final Frontier, and I'd made the suggestion, why don't we do them like comic book covers? That was already in my thinking, but then when it came to doing the solo thing, I had an idea for a story, and I thought, wouldn't it be cool if there was a comic that went with an album that had a little story, and we could make some of the album, not necessarily all of it, but some of it dovetail with that. It's just an extra way of getting an entree to the music, if you like, you know, another way of getting into it. So Eternity Should Fail was, if Eternity Should Fail, yeah, was going to be the Iron Maiden song. It was going to be my solo song, but Steve heard it and said, oh, I love that song. I went, oh, well, that was kind of part of the concept.
That was in a different pile you weren't supposed to touch?
Yeah, but we've done that a few times, you know. I got Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter was another one that I did as a tongue-in-cheek track for Nightmare on Elm Street movie that was never on a Nightmare on Elm Street movie because we were so far late. They already had all their tracks committed and everything. But Steve heard that one after we recorded it and went, oh, it's going to be for Maiden, and that was our only Iron Maiden number one. I mean, I think that's the only single we've ever had, and we went to number one at Christmas, which is fantastic, with a song called Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter, because it was great, because we could really shove the noses of the mainstream media in it, because obviously they ignored us. But the Christmas number one single, I think there's like a law that you have to play it. We were like, you're gonna have to play it, and what are you gonna do, you know? And of course they faded it after like 2 minutes or something, you know. But yeah, made us chuckle. So anyway, yeah, so going back to If Eternity Should Fail, ironically the Iron Maiden version had this long like monologue at the end of it, spoken by the character who is now in Mandrake, Necropolis. And I had a very simple story based upon a song I'd done called Accident of Birth. And it was just basically extrapolated from Accident of Birth. If that was a person who had lost his brother at childbirth but was psychically in touch with him, what would he do? How would he try and get back to could he bring his brother back into this world? And that's how the thought process started for Mandrake. Now it moved on massively from then, but some of the songs that I was writing, like Resurrection Men, that was all written around that time. And who are the Resurrection Men? Well, they're the people that are going to bring back his brother, and so on and so forth. So when I got to record Mandrake, I'd already moved the story along. I thought, you know what, let's dig deep into this. And by the time I got digging into the story and the whole concept, I realised that actually what I should do is get rid of most of the monologue at the end of the song that's on Iron Maiden, because it didn't make any sense, because it doesn't fit the story now.
Right.
And actually didn't make any sense on the Iron Maiden album either. I was like, to see Steve, I was like, dude, there's this guy whittering along about, hello, my name is Necropolis, I'm formed of the dead. I said, does that make any sense to you? And he goes, no, but it sounds great. I went, okay, cool, well, we'll leave it on. You know, for better, for worse, richer, for poorer, we'll leave it on. But I wanted things to make a bit more sense, and I wanted to differentiate them slightly. Obviously, the production's different, the way we play it is different. I added some bits in, and Eternity has failed now. because eternity does fail in the Mandrake project, because now you can live forever, maybe.
Now, you were saying obviously you were writing these songs, right? And you were sort of questioning, if eternity should fail or not fail. In your eyes, was this originally an album, a graphic novel, or maybe a TV show or movie?
No, I mean, you can discount TV show and movie because I've been around that world sufficiently to know that it just ain't going to happen. You have much more chance of making a TV show or a movie if you have a graphic novel. Or
say it louder for the people in the back.
Yeah.
I agree.
Than anything else, because as somebody said to me, I'm not sure if it was Kurt or it was somebody else, they said, look, paper is cheap, film's expensive.
Yep.
And I thought, damn, you're right. So I thought about it as a novel, and then I thought, no, graphic novel, comic. I'm not fussed whether you call it a comic or a graphic novel. I think people call it a graphic novel because they want to sound, highbrow. I think comics sound.
You could charge $1 more.
Comics are like it's for kids. Well, you know what? Isn't everything for kids? I mean, aren't we kids, really? So anyway, there you have it. That was the idea. But I was just going to do, I thought like an 8-page or 10-page, giveaway with the album was the idea. And then I started sketching it out as a story. And I got to 1 episode, then 2, then 3, then 4. And then I really dug very deep, took a big deep dive, and came up with the fully formed 12-episode character sketches, backstory, everything, which is Mandrake Project. And then I realised that if I was going to do that, I would need a publisher. So I didn't know who to go to, right? And I'd completely forgotten that Iron Maiden were doing something with Z2. I was like, in fact, that was off my radar. And I was talking to Kurt Sutter, who Sons of Anarchy, The Shield, and an A-lister is not over-egging the pudding. He's a proper A-list writer. And he had done a comic, he'd probably done several for all I know, called The Sisters of Sorrow, with another comic publisher. And we were chatting, and I said, okay, Ron, how does this work, Kurt? Because it's during COVID, right? And at the time, I was doing a cartoon, which was turned into the Iron Maiden video.
Yep.
So I was into storyboards and I wrote the story for it and the storyboard, and we were doing all the animation things, and then I was having little Zoom conversations with Kurt and my mate Sasha, who was his buddy, who introduced me to Kurt, and we're just bouncing ideas around off each other, just creative people playing, because the world had gone mad and all you could do was play.
This is during the pandemic, right?
Yeah. I said, I've done an autobiography, I've done comic novels, I've written screenplays. I've never done a comic, a graphic novel, And Kurt said, well, let me send you the keys to the kingdom. So he sent me the script for one of his Sisters of Sorrow episodes, and the episode, and the backstory, and the whole pitch, the pitch deck that he'd done for the publisher. So I got all of this, read it, and thought, that's what I got to do. So I did it. And then I went to him with the story and said, Kurt, is this any good? He went, yes. I said, so what the hell do I do with it now? Who do I go to? And he goes, stand by. So he called his buddy, who's an agent who does comics and in Hollywood, and he said, he recommends a company called Z2. I went, you know what? heard of that name, Z2. And I phoned up my management and said, Z2, where do I know that from? They go, because we're working with them to do a comic of Peace of Mind. I went, well, no shit. Wow, amazing. So that's how we ended up meeting. Right. And then I said, well, can I do one of the stories for the, in the book, in Peace of Mind? Really, as a way of just trying to get my feet under the desk and say, well, how do we do this? And that, of course, is when I think you guys suggested teaming up with Tony Lee, who is thoroughly in the world of comics and novels and everything else. And Tony kind of held my hand through the process, and now he's like accusing me of learning.
Well, I can't again. I can't disclose our location, but we met at this exact location about a year ago.
We did just over there.
Right over there. Yeah. And you guys, Tony is a very respected comic book writer, and of course Doctor Who.
Oh yeah.
Writer, and you guys had a little bit of a love affair about Doctor Who and Daleks, and I had no idea what you were talking about after a while, but it was very impressive. And what's it been like working with Tony as sort of a creative partner?
He is probably one of the easiest creative persons. Yes, people. He's a very creative
all
chap.
His people
very
are
easy
talented.
to get along with. The way it works now, because I started to get my head around comic script, which is not movie script,
right.
Nor is it novel, nor is it this, and realise that you have to respect certain protocols because you're limited. You're limited, which is that's the wrong word. I don't like saying you're limited in comics. You're not limited, but you have to respect the format. That there is a page, and you turn the page, and stuff happens.
It's sort of like music. There's beats almost. Rance and I talked about this again. There's beats that sort of have to happen, and you have nuances.
You have to respect the rhythm of turning the page.
Right. Yeah.
And that has to be part of the story. Storyboard of the film is the same. There's a rhythm to that as well. So, and that I think is where film and comic really, really gel, because you are writing a storyboard as you go through a comic. Something was explained to me by the guy that it was a director of The Chemical Wedding, which was a movie that I did with Julian Doyle. Julian was a film editor, and he was Monty Python's film editor. So he did all the Python films, Life of Brian, Holy Grail, everything, and he was their assistant director, lighting cameraman a lot of the time, and editor. He did Brazil as well, worked with Gilliam very closely, and years back he gave me a copy of Watchmen and said, this is the future, in both senses I suppose, but it was like, look, what you have here is a movie. So I read it and I was just like, this is utterly brilliant. I've read it umpteen times now and get something different out of it. It's a classic. And so that was something to aspire to. But back to Tony, initially I was writing things in a kind of semi-screenplay format, like it was a treatment, right? Combination treatment and dialogue. And then he said, well, you can't do that because that can't happen there because you need to turn the page. So we can't have that because I mean, oh my God, ding. So now I've usurped his function somewhat, and I turn up and go, this is the opening page, this is this is that, da 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 da. And we get to the end, he goes, you're 2 pages short. I went, fuck you! What? How do you know?
You thought the student surpassed the teacher.
But we brainstorm everything literally in an afternoon. I sit there and I prepare all the material for another episode. So episode 6 and 7. So we did episode 5, and he went, "Wow, that's pretty out there." I went, "Good, you ain't seen nothing yet." So 6 and 7, I thought, I'm pretty confident we're there, and I was 80% right. But again, it was just like we're 1 page short on episode 6. But where? Yeah, maybe all right, but I'm getting the hang of it. Not that I want to, I'm not trying to do him out of a job, because he sometimes makes some great suggestions, and I'm all open to that, because everything's a learning curve. It's a continuous, lifelong learning curve.
I know for Ant and I, it's been a joy to watch that process, and of course, in addition to that, you're surrounded by 3 incredible artists you've gotten to work with, right? From Bill Sienkiewicz on our covers to Stas Johnson and Peter Kowalski, who've been doing the interior art.
Yeah.
What was it like the first time you saw this stuff drawn out and illustrated? Because obviously a lot of it was living in your head. What was it like to see it sort of come to life?
I was absolutely. Some of it, I have to say, I was floored. I was like, oh, "That's it. You've got it. Boom. That's him." Now we're starting to get a little bit more, a bit more picky, because of the characters. The first kind of like the first rush, if you like, is like, "Wow, isn't that great?" But then as you drill down into further episodes, and emotional relationships get more complex, you start getting more picky and a bit more nitpicky about the artist and how we draw things, and things like that. And age is another thing as well.
Because you're going backwards and forwards in time in
Yes,
this story.
Yes, absolutely. So we're the Mandrake starts by and large in a kind of semi-present day era, slightly retro, a little bit of retro stuff in there, but kind of a little bit. It's not defined. It's not like now.
Yeah.
Yes, there are mobile phones. So right. But we don't rely on that very much. But you go back to the end of the 1930s. The story goes back there. And also like Buzz Lightyear to infinity and beyond.
Now, what was so cool is when your videos first came out, the first single after the F-Go of Ragnarok came out, so much of what we had already seen or we knew was going to be in the comic, we got to see visually in video format too.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so exciting to see that you're thinking about each medium at the same time. To me, it almost seems like the album, the book, the performance is all
completely. Yeah. No,
all one and the same.
Yeah, and I do see them as different, different facets of a rock. You could call it a diamond if you want to be whatever, but it's like a multi-sided dice. That you can look at each facet should live on its own, but they all form part of the structure. And that again is very exciting, and it's a little bit instinctive as well, because it should be, because that way it's natural. If you overthink things, you kind of squish them, and people go, "Yeah, you're trying a bit too hard," So it needs to be a little bit relaxed in terms of the connections between things. Having said that, I mean, the first video, Afterglow of Ragnarok, if I was going to improve it, I would say I should have been there more than I was, because unfortunately I was not available, so we kind of did it a bit remotely. and my performance was done against a green screen, which I've never done before, and I did it in like 2 hours in an afternoon. So I was like, yeah, it was okay, and it had the effect, and it did everything. If I wanted, I would probably have tweaked the storyboard a little bit in a few different ways. Now, when I was there, and we did really design something properly, Rain on the Graves.
I was going to say, for your next video, you're fully...
Yeah.
You're in there, and you're...
Yeah. So
it's a robust acting performance, right?
Well, yeah.
Don't undersell it, sir.
More ham on the bone there, sir. Ham, yeah. And that was great fun doing that. And the imagery, costume, everything, it just worked. And it was a homage to Hammer Horror as well. I mean, that was, that I hope that was blindingly obvious to people. I think
it came across.
Yeah.
Well, one of the great things in that video also is the grave is that of William Blake's, right? So,
yes.
And for this particular book that we're releasing today, let's talk about this. This is sort of a craziness, but you've got involved with the William Blake Trust.
Yep.
And a big, obviously, huge hero of yours and inspiration for this music and this album. But we actually acquired soil from his actual grave here. Let's talk about this.
Yes.
Is this legal?
One of our secret acolytes made his way into the graveyard late one night and scraped up sufficient soil, having kind of been influenced by the soul of William Blake lying there under the ground, to be introduced into some ink. And we have used the ink in the production of the book.
So it's safe to say William Blake's DNA could be some of his spiritually could be there. Spiritual DNA.
I'm sure you could actually say he's not like leaking out of the ground.
Well, a couple copies we put too much in.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Too much Blake in those.
Yeah.
Well, that obviously sets this apart, I think, from most other comics or graphic, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
It definitely stands alone. Now, you also, for this project, got to put together a new band, the house band.
The House Band of Hell.
The House Band of Hell.
So that was really, we did that for a laugh when we did the Rainbow here in LA for 2 shows. We said, what are we going to call ourselves? And I said, well, let's call ourselves the House Band of Hell. And then it partially stuck, but we kind of I'm not sure we refer to ourselves as the House Band of Hell all the time. People find that a bit confusing, but doesn't sound too bad, does it? Bruce Dickinson and the House Band of Hell.
I think it sounds pretty badass. But it must. Has it been refreshing for you to play these solo shows and play this music out?
Was it frustrating?
No, refreshing.
Oh, refreshing. Oh, yeah. Bloody
How
amazing.
frustrating was it?
No, not frustrating in the slightest.
No.
It was brilliant, actually. So much so that I'm doing it again. So, obviously, this autumn.
And many of these shows are the first time in 30 years, right? You're maybe hitting some of these markets?
Yeah, obviously, we did a couple of warm-up shows here, the Rainbow and then the one in Orange County.
Yep.
But now we are, we're doing about 20-something shows across the whole of the USA and Canada. We'll make a start at introducing people to me and the House Band of Hell and everybody, So we're going to do some stuff off Mandrake, which we didn't do in Europe. So Shadow of the Gods, which I think is the most played track on the record, certainly at least on YouTube and stuff like that. So, and it's a pretty cool song. So we'll be doing that and some other stuff. I mean, obviously we've got shortly we've got a re-release, completely remixed, reimagined, re-engineered with additional parts, orchestras, string sections, horn sections, balls to Picasso. Yeah. So I think I tentatively say, can we call it more balls to Picasso?
Bigger balls.
Yeah, bigger balls to Picasso. that's coming out, I think, sort of like midsummer. So that'll be out at the same time with the tour as well. Oh, and if you come on the tour, I've got this idea, which I suppose I better tell you about, really, because you are going to have to give me 50 books every night.
Deal.
On the tour. So I don't want like a huge free-for-all, but I figure if we have 50 books available for sale every night, and they'll be special, so we'll put a label on them or a sticker or something that will be unique to that show. I'll sign it, stamp it, do something with it, and the only place you'll be able to get that book is at that show.
That's
in
incredible.
Person. That's the only way.
Well, you heard it here, folks. All tour long, get these very special editions signed by Bruce, and who knows what part of William Blake he'll put in them.
Yeah, well, I've got a few. Oh, yeah, I'm not sure I've got any spare.
What's left of William Blake?
Well, I've got a piece of his gravestone. They gave me that when when we rededicated his grave, because they found him using ground penetrating radar.
Really?
Yeah, because they didn't know exactly where he was buried. There's a little stone about that big, and it says, near this spot is buried William Blake. Like where, and so they finally did a ground penetrating radar and said, well, who's underneath there, oh, boom, and I think he's buried with his wife, and so there they are. So they rededicated the grave and put a big slab about the size of this park bench over the site. Here lies William Blake.
What is there anything fans could do to support the Blake Foundation? And
yes, I mean there's the Blake Cottage Trust, which is a charitable trust of which I'm a patron. Basically, what it is that Blake spent a lot of his time in London, but London obviously has been massively changed. So if you go and find William Blake House, you'll find it's an office block off Carnaby Street, right? But that's where he lived. But he did move down to the coast to a place called Felpham, and there he had a thatched cottage. And he lived there for about 3 years, and he wrote some of his greatest stuff there. And the cottage is still there, complete thatch. It's in a pretty sorry state, but the idea is that we would restore it, the trust will restore it, with the idea that it could be a partial museum, and a partial kind of almost like an Airbnb for people who want to stay in the house where William Blake created all this great stuff. So at the moment we've just got a grant of I forget the sum, but it's a reasonable sum to preserve the site, to do immediate work to stop the roof falling in and stuff like that. But now the work begins of getting enough money to do a proper job on the whole thing, and then you'll have one of the residences of probably one of one of the world's greatest poets, and people will be able to sit there and kind of be there as it was.
Yeah.
The same thing happens in the Lake District in England, where William Wordsworth, who was the inspiration for Rain on the Graves. So he's buried in a little churchyard, so I went to visit his grave, which wasn't very spooky. It was actually very nice, neat, well tended, but it was raining and there was like just this grey day, and the village is all Grasmere, and it's in the Lake District, beautiful part of England, but it rains a lot. And his cottage, where he did most of his writing, was again preserved. So I went there and visited it, and it was incredible sitting there in these little low ceilings and stuff going, this guy with like a candle was just like writing this amazing poetry. So I think that would be the inspiration for people there, that they they might get a little bit of a sense of the timelessness of the place from the poetry and from Blake.
Well, there's a great bonus section in the Mandrake book all about Blake and your interest in him, and of course this incredible soil process that we pulled off.
We soiled ourselves.
So that's a great bonus in the book. Now, of course, obviously, the book is on sale today, which we're so excited about. Additionally, HMV in your neck of the woods is going to have an exclusive edition available. Which is so exciting.
Yeah, I think, and somebody whispered in my ear that I might be going and doing a signing session there or something.
I can't confirm or deny, but that would be lovely if it happened. And I know fans could order a special dedicated Bill Sienkiewicz cover on HMV, and of course, a separate Bill Sienkiewicz cover is being exclusively given to Revolver here in the States. So a lot of cool Easter eggs and stuff for fans. But Bruce, if you're cool with it, we're going to ask you some questions from the fans themselves that are watching now about the Mandrake project. If you're ready, if you could,
they're watching right now.
That little box there.
It's in the computer.
Oh my God! Eternity really has failed. It's amazing. How many of them are in that little box?
We've got 182 of them right now.
My God! And they all fit in the palm of your hand.
They do. They're very tiny.
Like infinity in
you
a grain
have
of
tiny
sand.
fans. You have tiny little fans. Someone wants to know if there's going to be a sequel to this book, which I think you've already sort of hinted at.
Yeah, well, it's 12 episodes, so these are 4 of them, and then there's another 4, and then there's another 4, and then we're going to have one giant book at the end. But yes, the answer is yes, and there's going to be, of course, a sequel to the Mandrake project, to the album, with the House Band of Hell. And funny enough, I was in a studio today, scoping out the studio where we're going to record the new album. So that's exciting.
You hear that? That's a scoop. That's what we call a scoop, my friends. New album alert. This is a great question, Bruce. Do you let the artists have free reign as you do these comics, or how much influence do you have with the artists as they're drawing the project?
The artist, I don't like to rein in creativity. The only thing I is just the little things, like if I want more of something, I'll say go big on that. Yeah, really go big on X, Y, Z in that shot. And again, emotional life, age, and things like that. You know. But in general, I kind of leave it. I leave it with the artist. They're the artist, you know. It's like, you know, I can't draw for shit, you know. I mean, so you know.
But to Bruce's credit, when you first showed us the Mandrake project, you did some pretty cool sketches mapped out. You had some ideas around the medallion and some other thoughts. Right. Yeah, I think I was impressed.
I must have been taking Mandrake.
You were high on Mandrake route. This is a great question, Bruce. I love this one. If William Blake was able to rise from the dead and be here today, what would you say to him?
Sorry.
Sorry for the book, or for violating his grave.
Oh no, I think he'd love that.
Yeah, he liked the grave violation.
Love having ink from his grave. He'd think that was fantastic. Yeah. I think I hope Blake would imagine that. I hope he might think my stuff was even an atom's worth of his creativity.
Obviously, we mentioned earlier you did some acting in Rain the Graves. Very, very subtle, very subdued.
Exaggerate, surely.
Would you ever have interest in doing more acting in film going forward, or maybe would there be a Mandrake movie?
No. Oh my God, a Mandrake movie. No, I mean that's just pure. At the moment, that's pure fantasy. Until somebody phones me up and goes, you know, the head of the studio read this amazing comic the other day. He goes, you know what, this would make a great movie. Until somebody does that, no. In terms of acting, I'm not really sure I mean, I can do bit parts and things like that, and I'll do stuff for having a bit of fun. I mean, my buddy's making a film, I hope, shortly, you know, and I had so I've got a part in it for you. I went, really? What's the part? He says, gardener. I went, oh. Do I get a line? No.
No. Well, obviously in your normal performances, you're very naturally theatrical.
Yeah, but
as
there's theatrical and there's acting.
Yeah.
And there's theatre acting and there's movie acting. And when you say acting, I assume you're talking movie acting, and that is a pretty specialised skill set. I've seen one or two movie actors working close up, not that many, but a few, and honestly, it's pretty impressive. And I'm like, I would not turn around and go, oh yeah, I could do that, you know. So anyway, I've got plenty of other things. I'm kind of busy.
Fly planes and sword fight and stuff. Well, Bruce, final question: what of the new songs on Mandrake Project? Is there one in particular that you have enjoyed playing the most with the House Band of Hell? From Hell.
Well, I love Resurrection Men because it is just the combination of all the bits that I love about my solo career. It's heavy, it's eccentric, and hopefully it's varied in terms of its approach to it. I mean, you know, we've got like Dick Dale surf guitar, bongos, and like these monstrous crunching Black Sabbath riffs, and stuff lyrics that frankly belong on a Hawkwind record.
Amazing. And Theremin.
Oh yes, well Theremin's not on the record.
Yeah. That's more of a live feature.
Yeah, Theremin. I keep looking at Theremins and didgeridoos as well. Didgeridoos are amazing. I love them. I mean, I pass out every time I try to play it.
So we might hear a theremin on the second Mandrake album? TBD?
Oh, I
can't confirm.
We haven't gotten as far as what we're going to look. If we hear a theremin, then it'll be playtime. It'll be like, oh, can we stick a theremin on that? And they go, ooh, you know, I don't know. But it'll be in the live show for sure. We do a little instrumental workout on Frankenstein, the old Edgar Winter song, yeah. And it features a theremin and drum solo workout.
As one does. Well, Bruce, we can't thank you enough for joining us here today. I don't know if you had any final words to our fans here that are watching from around the world. Obviously, Mandrake Project, year one, available today on z2comics.com, but...
Well, you said that. I'm just saying, these are not my final words. At least I hope they're not my final words.